Throughout history, women have endured some of the most horrifying and inhumane punishments imaginable. Punishments that reveal the darkest aspects of a society's treatment of women. From accusations of witchcraft to defying gender norms, women's fates are often sealed with horrific consequences. If a woman accused of a crime, whether it be political dissent, witchcraft, or treason, is tied to a giant wheel, her limbs are shattered one by one, and she is left to die in agonizing pain. This was the reality for many women during the medieval and early modern periods, where the breaking wheel was used as a form of execution and torture. The punishment involved the condemned being strapped to a wheel, their arms and legs broken, often in front of a crowd. The woman's body would be left on the wheel for hours or even days as a display of power and deterrence. For women accused of witchcraft or rebellion, this was not just a punishment. It was a public spectacle meant to humiliate, terrify, and erase any trace of defiance. The breaking wheel was a brutal form of punishment, but its psychological impact was just as terrifying. Women accused of crimes that threatened the stability of the status quo were tortured to break their spirits and their bodies in equal measure. Next, we turn to one of the most publicly humiliating punishments ever used, the pillory and stocks. These devices, which held a person's head and hands in place or their legs immobilized, were often used to punish women for crimes like gossiping, adultery, or even just being seen as troublesome. The women were put on display for the entire community, standing or sitting in public squares, often exposed to ridicule, physical abuse, or even violent attacks from the crowd. Their punishment wasn't just about physical pain. It was about stripping them of their dignity. The humiliation was meant to degrade them in front of their family, friends, and society. For many, the pillory and stocks were punishment enough. The shame they endured, coupled with the constant fear of attack, left permanent scars on their psyches. In some instances, women were left for days, forced to endure hunger, thirst, and the elements. During the 16th and 17th centuries, a cruel punishment known as the ducking stool became a popular method of public punishment for women accused of being scolds, witches, or even just women who didn't conform to societal expectations. The accused woman was strapped to a chair, which was then dumped repeatedly into a body of water, sometimes for hours on end. The goal of this punishment was to purify the woman by subjecting her to the trial of water. The logic? If she survived, she was considered innocent. If she drowned, well, then she was seen as guilty. But the true horror was the repeated dunking. Some women were submerged so many times that they risked drowning long before they were ever declared innocent. The ducking stool wasn't just about physical pain. It was a method of control. It was used to silence women who dared to speak their minds, challenge their husbands, or question authority. For many, it was a fate worse than death, as it meant enduring public humiliation, physical torment, and the very real fear of suffocating under the weight of oppression. Perhaps one of the most infamous and brutal punishments was burning at the stake. This was a fate that befell many women throughout history, particularly during the height of the witch hunts in Europe and early America. Women accused of witchcraft, heresy, or simply being too different were bound to wooden stakes, and flames were set to their bodies. The smoke, the agony, and the suffocating heat, the screams of the condemned woman, filled the air as she was burned alive, often in front of a crowd of onlookers. This form of execution was meant not only to punish but to purify, ridding society of what was perceived as evil. Burning at the stake wasn't just about the fiery torment. It was a way of erasing a woman from history. It was a statement that women who defied gender roles or who were seen as a threat to social order had no place in the world. The psychological effects were equally devastating. No one was safe, and the fear of being accused of witchcraft hung over the heads of countless women. From the breaking wheel to burning at the stake, These methods were not just about physical torment. They were designed to break women's spirits, silence their voices, and force them into submission. As we look back at these dark chapters of history, we must remember that these stories are not just tales of the past. They reflect the struggles many women still face in the fight for justice and equality today. These punishments may no longer be in practice, but the remnants of this oppressive mindset still linger in various forms.